What is up, basketball fans? Welcome to the live edition of the NBA Outlet. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron. Kory, how we doing? We just did a live show. We're about to bang out another one.
The show doesn't stop. The show does not stop. I just got a notification, and I don't want to read it to you because you're going to be upset, and it's not about this podcast.
All right, read it to me.
The Nets may stop pursuing Kyrie.
Oh, okay. I already heard that today.
Okay, we're fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is not about Kyrie. This podcast is about small forwards.
I thought I was going to break your heart on air. We're good then.
No, I'm good. I got faith in Sean Marks. Backup plans are always in play. But talking small forwards, obviously a lot of big name small forwards on the market. And before we get into it, as always, check us out iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube. But what do you want to do first, Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant?
I think the best player right now in the league is Kawhi Leonard coming off of the Finals MVP. So I think Kawhi deserves the first nod.
Yeah, not coming off a torn Achilles, which sucks for KD. Obviously we'll talk about that in a sec. But you mentioned it. Kawhi, arguably the best player in the NBA currently, just won Finals MVP, carried the Raptors a lot of the postseason. Guys stepped up in the finals, but a lot of that was Kawhi. Obviously an elite two-way player. The only really concerns with him is that injuries that he's had with the quad, a little knee injury in the postseason, and then obviously occasionally he gets a little turnover happy. But what do you like about Kawhi's game other than what I stated?
I mean, there's nothing not to like really about Kawhi's game. One of the best defenders in the league, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. He's got the claw-like hands, very good at getting steals, very good at blocking shots. Pretty much can neutralize your best offensive player given the task. Offensively, fantastic footwork, may travel a little bit more than he gets called on, as we've mentioned before on the NBA final recap shows, but still tremendous footwork. The three-point shot has gotten better since his early years in the NBA. An underrated passer, nothing to write home about, but passing wise, but a very good, very underrated playmaker, I'd say. And then, of course, Boardman gets paid. A very good rebounder, probably a below average, probably an underrated rebounder before this playoff run. He had some very big rebounding games.
He can just go and grab the ball no matter who's in there because all he needs is one hand. He literally snatched the ball away from Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, whoever it is. Crazy big players or athletic players, it doesn't really matter. And you mentioned the passing. I think that improved because he got so much attention in the playoffs. He kind of was able to develop that almost in the postseason. Arguably one of the best mid-range players in the NBA, just straight lethal from that area, contested or not, a different type of confidence. And you mentioned three-point shot can get hot from deep. I love Kawhi. I think he probably is currently the best player in the NBA. He could, attain that title again next year, depending on what happens with LeBron James or Anthony Davis or Giannis. I think he'll be right up in that talk, for the next couple years. What do you think about where he's going to end up? Obviously, he just won a championship with Toronto, but it doesn't seem like there's an extreme amount of confidence he's going to resign.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on this little hill since the playoffs the NBA finals were wrapping up, where I still don't see Kawhi Leonard staying in Toronto, and I've felt this way. I think he realizes too this is probably the last chance that roster had of winning a title with the age of Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol, Danny Green, Serge Ibaka. You got some nice guys in Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, but overall this roster is kind of old. Does Masai Ujiri? Am I close?
Yeah, you're close enough.
Does he stay? Does he leave? Obviously, the Wizards came out so they didn't offer him the job, but that's up in the air. So I just think it makes sense for Kawhi to leave. There's been a lot of ties with him in LA. The Lakers are not that team. There's rumors the Lakers are interested, but I don't think the Lakers have a chance of getting him. It feels like the Los Angeles Clippers are the team. I'll give the Brooklyn Nets probably a slight chance as well, because we've heard those rumblings. And if I had to give another team, I would maybe say the Celtics, because they had Cap. Maybe they go crazy and they try and do something, but again, it doesn't feel like he's interested in Boston.
Yeah, I think if he goes anywhere, it's big market or back in Toronto, which is almost becoming a big market because of just having the whole country behind you. And I think it's Clippers, Raptors, Nets, and I think the Knicks still have a chance. I think the Knicks do have a possibility of getting in there and maybe trying to convince him just being in New York. But I think he's more of a low-key guy, so it would probably make more sense for him to go to Brooklyn. Like you said, I'm not super high in the Raptors window. If he did stay in Toronto, I think it would be a 1+1, like we've talked about in the OTG group chat, because you're not really sure what's going to happen with Gasol and Lowry, but also their contracts run out at the end of next year, so they could also make some moves and get in some big free agents. And Siakam, I think, can still hit another level too.
Yeah, and I must say, I'm personally on the one-on-ones. I don't think Kawhi wants a one-on-one. For me, I think coming off the injury with the Spurs, coming off the knee injury this year, the fact that he's already said load management was huge for him to be able to go this deep in the playoffs. I feel like even he may have some doubts about his body to a degree, or not doubts, but like I don't know if he would want to risk the fact that maybe my body could break down a little bit and I get screwed out of money. But again, that doesn't necessarily matter because Kevin Durant ruptures Achilles and he's probably still going to get max money coming off of that. But I don't think a lot of players want to take that risk.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that makes it some teams a little bit more attractive. Obviously, the Nets have an A1 performance team that kind of helps their case. Also, shout out their scout, Thiago Splitter, former teammate of Kawhi Leonard, sending him cigars for the parade. So trying to get some work in, probably tampering. But I think still, like we talked about, the favorites is probably Clippers and Raptors. The Clippers have really been pursuing him the entire season. I don't know if you've read the reports that they essentially had some type of Clipper personnel at every single Raptors game just so their presence was felt for Kawhi. And obviously, a lot of talk last year when he wanted to be traded, it was the Lakers before they got LeBron. And then after that, it was the Clipper talk because he wanted to be in LA and that's where he's from. It seems like family is very important to him, quiet guy. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued what happened to Kawhi. And we know essentially because the Raptors traded for him and they became contenders, they were fringe contenders before that. He has the possibility with a good team to take you all the way to a championship and win you a championship.
Yeah, I think the Clippers have a very similar sort of roster construction that kind of fits what the Raptors did too. There's not a lot of me guys per se. It's a team effort, and they can probably.
They got some really, really, really good contracts from Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Landry Shamet. Like there's guys, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's on a rookie deal. So there's plenty of contracts there too, and they can still add another star and then have a good team to support him. Obviously, I think if they want to add another star, they need to drop Gallinari or make a trade for him, trade away for him. But Kawhi is going to be obviously one of the biggest dominoes in free agency. Now,
definitely.
Anything else on the Kawhi for anyone to move to KD?
Are there any destinations?
No, anything else you want to touch on in terms of Kawhi?
Oh, I mean, no.
All right, well, let's go on to Kevin Durant, who, even though he did tear his Achilles, is still going to be one of the most sought-out free agents, maybe even more than Kawhi, just because he has a little bit more pop to his name. Essentially, he's going to miss all of next season. You know, he's elite. He's not really bad at anything. It'll be more so how he comes back from the injury. Obviously, he's going to probably lose a step of athleticism, but his best skill set is his skills at that size. To be able to do what he does is amazing. What are your thoughts on KD, the injury, and how it impacts the offseason, if at all?
I mean, it impacts to a degree. He's in the midst of a full year, and he's coming off an injury that has just kept players from bouncing back well. I mean, Dominic Wilkins is the only guy to have a very successful season following a ruptured Achilles. Kobe, we saw what happened to him. He came back to the quickest in 240 days. DeMarcus Cousins came back in like 340 days, and he still doesn't look right. Granted, he also tore his quad, so it's tough to gauge what his legs look like in general, but Durant's coming back from a major injury. He's going to be 32. He already has all the miles on him. I mean, the one good thing for him is the fact that he's a jump shot shooter. So like that necessarily doesn't ever go away. He can probably still be useful. He's also so tall, but we don't know how this injury is going to affect him. A guy who's 7 foot tall. You know, I know it says 6'10" or 6'11". The man's 7 foot tall. He's taller than Marcus Cousins, who's 6'11".
He might even be more than 7 feet, to be honest.
Right.
But, I don't know if it's irrational, but I have confidence in Kevin Durant coming back just because of his skill set. He doesn't really necessarily depend on athleticism. You know, he could come back and just shoot over guys. You know, I think he's more definitely of a power forward. He's playing a lot of power forward, obviously, with Golden State. You know, you worry about him a little bit defensively where that could hurt him, but offensively, his skill set is mostly just being extremely tall and lanky and having the skill set of, you know, a 6'3" guard. So I think he'll be okay in terms of the injury. Just don't rush him back. I think he'll still probably come back as possibly top 5 player, probably at the least top 10 player, as long as everything goes well. What are the destinations you like for him? The latest rumor is he's considering Golden State, Brooklyn, and New York.
I mean, I think the Warriors make the most sense. The fact that he was talking to Clay right after Clay tore his ACL, it just feels like that team kind of got closer through losing. I don't feel like they would get as close if they won, but them losing the way they did with these guys going down injury, it kind of just leaves a sour taste of like what could have been if we all stayed healthy. So I think there's that play that keeps him in Golden State. New York, that's all about his legacy. If he thinks he can define his own legacy by being the guy in Madison Square Garden in New York, then he goes there. If he really wants to play with his buddy Kyrie, then that's the Brooklyn Nets. I think those are the three. Does he want to play with one of his friends? Does he want to go cement his legacy? Or does he want to try and run it back and prove doubters wrong about the Warriors?
Yeah, I think the safest road is going back to Golden State. Because even when he comes back, he's not going to have as much pressure because he's still going to be playing with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. There's going to be no rush to get him back because they're obviously a little nervous with that whole situation. I think the Knicks is the riskiest situation because now other type of players are on the team and they're kind of expecting you to carry that team and build up your legacy. It might not happen because you might not be the same player. I think the Nets is almost a happy medium where it's somewhat risky because you're still going to Brooklyn. You're not sure if they're going to be a championship team. But you do have Kyrie, you do have other young players there. The Nets doctor's the one that performed the surgery on his Achilles, I believe, and also previous foot injuries. So you have confidence in their medical staff. So it's like, I think you probably rank them Golden State, Nets, and then Knicks. But I wouldn't be surprised if he signed with any of those teams. It's just the real possibility. It seems like the Clippers are kind of out of the mix right now.
Yeah, it does.
And it seems like it makes sense. They're trying to aim for Kawhi more so and trying to win now. And I think they wanted to more maybe pair KD and Kawhi. Now, obviously, that's not realistic because you have to wait another season. And I think the Clippers are trying to push now where the New York teams, they're okay with probably waiting a year and getting Kevin Durant in that, that city, your opposing team, regardless who it is, even the Nets have a lot of success next year and then the Knicks have KD coming back, they're going to get more spotlight just because of the player KD is, vice versa for the Nets, even though, they might have a good season, they're going to be even more talked about if Kevin Durant's returning. So it's going to be a major storyline, and it's crazy to think about that a player who just tore his Achilles is probably going to be the most talked about free agent this offseason.
That's good. Yeah.
Anything else on the Durant front?
No, that's good.
All right, Chris Middleton next up. Obviously, not the same level as these guys. Still an all-star level player, two-way player, can score, create for himself, not really a playmaker for others, can play good defense. Didn't necessarily have an amazing postseason. What do you think about Chris Middleton?
I mean, this is a guy who's very good 3-and-D. All-star last year for the first time. Good defender, good three-point shooter. Obviously kind of had a rough series against the Raptors. Boston Celtics killer in the playoffs. Definitely want him if you match up against the Celtics. Feels like if he gets max money, it's going to be a slight overpay. I don't think he's max player worthy, but this is a very important piece of this Milwaukee Bucks team. And I know I'm jumping ahead, but he's not going anywhere. This is a guy who I'm almost 100% well, at least 95% positive he stays in Milwaukee.
Reports came out today that they're going to offer him the max when free agency starts. Yeah. And that's what you always figured. They weren't going to bring in another free agent. They needed to retain him more than anybody else in that roster. What do you think? Is Chris Middleton good enough to be the second best player on a championship team? Like, could this Bucks team have won a championship this year with him as their second best player just because they had so many other good players, or is he better off as your third best player?
I think he can be your second guy. I actually really do think he can be your second guy. I don't think he's fully developed yet. I think this next season, depending on the jump he takes or doesn't take, will be the final determination of that. Because even though the scoring numbers dropped this past year, he's still scoring at a good efficiency. He's still a very good defender. It's more so if Giannis Antetokounmpo can develop a jump shot to his game, that will actually make Middleton a better number two if Antetokounmpo is a more lethal number one.
Yeah, it gives him more spacing. I think also like he can be your number two, but you need to have a really, really good team like they had this year. You need to have
Bledsoe can't be, and that realistically for the Bucks in general, Bledsoe probably can't be your number three, which is what he is right now.
I agree. I think you need someone, or if he's your number three, you need someone else to be your like 3B and 3C. You can't have that drop off into the next guy. Like the roster they had this year was probably enough to win a championship. Will they be able to bring back that same roster? Probably not, because guys are going to get bigger offers elsewhere unless they're willing to go really deep in the luxury tax.
Yeah.
If he did leave, what would be some destinations in mind, if any?
I mean, the Lakers would make some sense, obviously, for 3-and-D purposes. I don't hate the fit maybe in Denver if Denver wanted to, but they wouldn't have enough money. There maybe even Sacramento if Sacramento wanted to fill the shoes of Harrison Barnes, who just opted out. There's no place that streams out for Chris Middleton, but that's also because I haven't given it much thought.
Yeah, I think you look at it is that a lot of teams that maybe miss out on the big star could go for a Chris Middleton because it's not that much of a drop off. And you can bring a lot to your team. Obviously, I think there's been some mention of possibly like the Knicks. Any team with cap space obviously could sign him because, like you said, he'll probably end up getting the max. Is it a slight overpay? Probably, but in this market, that's what he'll end up getting.
Yeah.
Now, a guy you know very well, Bojan Bogdanovic, obviously career year, very efficient scoring year, improved defensively. What'd you like about Bojan's game this year?
I mean, he's been everything the Pacers have asked him to be and more. Last year, he was the second best offensive weapon we had before Victor Oladipo got hurt, became the best after he got hurt. The guy is a walking bucket. You mentioned this to me when he first got traded over from the Nets or after we signed him, that he's one of those guys where if he makes his first basket, generally it's going to be a good night. If he misses his first basket, it might be a bad night. There's a lot of games where he made his first basket. He obviously shot 42% from three, I believe, 49% from the field, was just electric. Not a great defender, but a guy who like at least puts in 100% effort on each possession and at least gets a little bit physical and tries his best, which I think matters. At his age, right in the prime of his career, not going to get much better. This is probably who he is. Can probably be, the third or fourth offensive option on a team or on a competing team, a title-winning team, possibly. But, he's a good guy who I feel like is kind of due for an overpay, though. This is a guy I could see people missing out on those top three and thinking we got to get Bogdanovic.
I agree. I think you brought up the point of him having just like a really crazy year. And ideally, you look at him to be your third or fourth option, possibly on a championship team, probably leaning towards the fourth option. Because I just feel like I don't want to say it was an outlier because I think this is like best version of Bogdanovic that you'll ever see. I don't know if he'll do it again into next year. And I just think so many things went right in the Pacers team. They play such team basketball. It worked out for them. But what would you say would be contractors thinking about for Bogdanovic?
Oof. I'll give it from the Pacers perspective because there's still a lot of rumors the Pacers re-sign him. If I'm the Pacers, I don't want to give him any more than $13 million a year. That would be the high.
I think he definitely gets more than that.
Right, and that's the issue. He made $10 million last year. I wouldn't want to give him more than 13, especially because he's 30. And this deal probably is going to be 3 to 4 years. I would guess he wants 4. I'm guessing he settles on 3. But I'm guessing he'll probably make 3 years, $46 million, 3 years, $48 million, like something around there feels pretty accurate. Maybe even $50 million, depending on how desperate a team gets.
Yeah, I could see it. I think he'll get 15 million plus. I think he's also a shooter too. The fact is, even when he ages a little bit, you'll still have his shooting on the floor. And he's a guy that you don't want as your main option, but he can play off other guys. And I agree. I think he'll get a little overpaid.
The one thing I will say though is you want to make sure the role he's going into is like a starting role because we've seen every single place he's been where he's come off the bench, he hasn't been as good as he has been as a starter.
Confidence is important for him.
Right, and rhythm. He's got to be a guy who's out there a lot to catch his kind of shooting form. So that'd be an interesting thing to watch as well.
Some targets or some landing spots for Bogdanovic.
I think the Indiana Pacers are first and foremost. I would also say the Los Angeles Lakers now.
Mm-hmm.
I would also throw in the Denver Nuggets possibly if they wanted to get some 3-point shooting at the wing for a little bit cheaper. Obviously, they got Michael Porter Jr. coming back, so that could change everything for them. Let's say Philly strikes out on Butler and Tobias Harris or one or the other. Maybe they go after Bogdanovic for some added shooting off the bench. If Toronto loses Kawhi, I could see them going after Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic is probably going to be like the first guy that a lot of these teams who strike out on small forwards go for.
The team that's been rumored to target him a lot has been San Antonio.
And
I've liked him for a while, too. Even from his Nets days, there was some trade rumors with them.
I've heard of San Antonio talks because there was rumors of maybe them trying, to trade DeMar DeRozan in some sort of sign-in trade for Bogdanovic. Obviously, keep DeRozan far away from my squad. But I don't hate Bogdanovic on the Spurs. They've obviously they like that team culture. Bogdanovic is definitely a system-type player, team guy, and they need the 3-point shooting down in San Antonio.
Yeah, they like the international flavor, and like you said, the spacing is much needed in San Antonio. They shot a high percentage last year, but the least amount of threes in the league, so they want to pick that up. I think he's an interesting guy to kind of keep an eye on that obviously had a career year. It's like, are you paying for that career year or more so his body of work?
Yeah.
Another guy that opted out this was probably one of my bigger surprises was Harrison Barnes opting out. I'm not sure like what contract he thinks he's getting, but that kind of caught me from surprise. What about you? I know there was rumblings, but I didn't think it was real.
I mean, it's weird to turn down 25 million, right? I mean,
and I don't even know if he'll make. I mean, he probably will, but it's like he's not going to make that much more than 25 million over the next 2 years.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a bet on yourself type of move. Like, I have to think he goes short term now, right? This is his like prime of the career contract too. He's 27, 28. So maybe he does a 1 year deal somewhere else to prove himself, or a 1 year deal back in Sacramento to try and earn even more money. But
that wouldn't make sense. It would have just made sense to stay in the 1 year deal that you got with it.
I don't know. It's him and the Al Horford 30 million made more sense. This opt out didn't make much sense. We actually kind of thought he was going to stay put at least.
And this, Sacramento really wanted him. They made that trade because they wanted him. They took on his contract,
and they plan on re-signing him too, right? Isn't that still the goal?
Yeah, I think there's a rumor about it. I mean, like, I don't even know what Harrison Barnes makes. Like, I just don't really have a high praise for Harrison Barnes. That's just my opinion. I think his best role is when he's like your fourth best player, like he was or fifth best player, like he was in Golden State, fourth or fifth.
Yeah.
And you don't want to pay him $20 million. I think like you're probably okay paying him like in that $15 million range. Maybe he thinks he'll get like 4 years, $60 million. Like, right. I guess then the opt out wouldn't be terrible, but like, I don't know. I feel like maybe he just didn't like Sacramento. That's a possibility too. He didn't like his fit. He didn't like playing there. He wanted to get out.
I mean, his numbers weren't great there. I mean, they weren't terrible, but it's Harrison Barnes had a weird little career after Golden State.
What's like best case scenario for Harrison Barnes in terms of like, can he be your third best player in a championship team or no? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think there's enough defensively. I think offensively he's a nice complementary piece, but again, I don't like the thought of having to lean heavily on Harrison Barnes for buckets. We saw
he's
that
not efficient. He takes a lot of bad shots.
We saw that in the NBA Finals a couple years. The last time he was in the NBA Finals, that he just couldn't get it done. He had a lot of wide open looks too.
He missed like double-digit wide open threes in that series. I mean, you could argue that he's the reason they lost to the Cavs. Obviously, there was more than that, but if he has an average series, they win.
Yeah, I say he's probably your fourth best option.
Yeah, and I think that's it's not. I don't want to say being nice, but that's like an ideal situation. Rudy Gay bounced back year in San Antonio. Obviously, he's getting up there in age. He bounced back from a torn Achilles. He's more of a 4 now than a 3. What do you like about Rudy Gay? And what do you think his next role is?
I mean, I think he's a 6-man. I can start off with that. I think his role is coming off the bench as a 6-man. So he still has offensive pop. One of his best year, I think it was his best year ever from 3. I know for a majority of the year we played our guess the line game, and me giving you Rudy Gay's stat was a tough line for you to figure out because he was always shooting right around 50% from 3 or high 40s. So Rudy Gay was definitely still an offensive threat, can still be a tenacious little defender. I don't think he's a very good defender, but he's at least solid, can stay in front of you. He's obviously played on a lot of good defensive teams over the years. I think there's a lot of teams looking for a guy like him off the bench, and last year shows that he can still, if he can shoot like this, he's going to have a longer duration to his NBA career.
Yeah, I think he could possibly be your 5th starter. Ideal role is probably your 7th man off the bench. I don't know if I want to call him your 6th man, but I think it's the 7th man role, being like that stretch 4 off the bench that could play a little 3-4. I like Rudy Gay. I think you could probably get him for a decent bargain too.
Yeah.
What are some teams you like for him? I don't know if you've given much thought to it because it's starting to get lower in the rankings here. It's like he can land in so many places.
Well, I think it depends on how many minutes he wants to play and like the contract, but like I wouldn't be like the teams I thought of originally were like Minnesota if they're looking for some scoring off the bench, Charlotte if they're looking for scoring off the bench, Detroit if they're looking for some scoring off the bench.
No money for those teams though. I think that he could definitely probably get the mid-level exception, which is around $8 million.
Right. And I was thinking somewhere between 8 to 10 million to begin with for Rudy Gay. If Philly strikes out, maybe they go after Rudy Gay. I think the Lakers will be in play for him depending on how much money they have. They don't go after another star. Dallas maybe, if they want somebody off the bench. They do have a little bit of cap this offseason. It feels like he probably stays in San Antonio.
I think so. I think he's really liked it. And I think when you bounce back from a major injury like that in San Antonio, it kind of makes you want to stay. There's a chance somebody could offer him a little bit more money, or he wants to leave, or maybe he just likes another situation. I think he could fit on a lot of teams if he's willing to be a backup and his price tag isn't too hefty.
I would agree with that.
All right, going through some other guys. Trevor Ariza, who just collected the bag last year, and we talked about it last year. And my thought process on that was, hey, I'm going to cash out. I'm going to get one really big contract, and then this season I'm going to go back to being on a contender.
I'm sorry, Nick, it broke out a little bit. What was the last?
Trevor Ariza?
Trevor Ariza. Can we leave the Houston threes behind us, please? Like, this one game, and I'm still hearing people say, you can't sign Ariza. He's not clutch. I'm like, what do you mean he's not clutch? The man has an NBA Finals appearance and title with the Los Angeles Lakers. Trevor Ariza is going to be a guy a lot of teams look for. Again, we've mentioned the Lakers will definitely be interested in him. The Clippers, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers, the Warriors somehow, if they have some disabled money for injuries, they try and give Trevor Ariza a contract just because I think he could be a 3-and-D glue guy for the Warriors if they try to remain competitive. And then any of those Eastern Conference teams aside from the Wizards. I could see the Pacers maybe taking a chance on him at the 3-and-D. Philly, if it's a friendly deal. Raptors, if they lose Kawhi again. But there are plenty of teams that need the experience of Trevor Ariza and the fact that he can still, he had some nice playmaking games even with the Washington Wizards this year.
Yeah, I think he's a solid player. I think, probably your fifth starter, a guy you're bringing off the bench. He's not going to necessarily give you some of the good minutes we saw in Houston, but there's an opportunity for him to contribute to a contender. And I think he'll be a guy, he's not going to go in the first week, but the second week when you're looking to kind of add depth to your team or to your bench, I think he's a guy that you kind of look to go to. What about Kelly Oubre? Restricted free agent, most likely probably back with Phoenix if I had to guess.
I saw a tweet today, and it was like, oh, Russell Westbrook was hanging out with Kelly Oubre, and this Thunder fan was like, Kelly Oubre to the Thunder, yes, or something like, I can't wait. And it's like, bro, you're not getting Kelly Oubre.
You have no money. He's a restricted free agent.
Nothing. I think he ends up probably in Phoenix. They traded for him, I think, for a reason because they think he can be a part of them long term, especially after how bad Josh Jackson has turned out to be so far. TJ Warren, they're already trying to move. They really don't want him long term. So I feel like Kelly Oubre already has a solidified roster spot on that Phoenix team going forward. Kind of fits the pace they want to run and how quick they get up and down the floor. But he does a lot of good things. I mean, he can shoot the three better, very athletic. Decent rebounder, very tenacious defender. Sometimes an issue with Washington. Sometimes getting a little bit too physical. I can remember those Boston Celtics series. Obviously, there was a lot of bad blood in general, but a couple of technicals on him on Kelly Olynyk. But he's a very nice role player. Maybe your fourth to fifth best starter when he further develops. Yeah,
I think he played really well for them last year, and he's going to probably stay in Phoenix. He'll probably get a decent contract too because there is still some potential. Three-point shot probably has to take another step for him to take another step, but there's a lot there that I think you'd be happy about with your Phoenix. Any other small forwards you want to touch on? There's minor guys like James Ennis, who I think's a good guy, who's like maybe your eighth.
We have Marcus Morris labeled as a power forward, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll talk about him a different day. That would be the only other guy I'd have some thoughts on.
Yeah, I think the small forward class isn't very
DeMarre Carroll?
Oh, yeah, DeMarre Carroll. Yeah, that's a solid one. I think his best basketball is behind him, but I think what he brings to your team is more a veteran and more of a culture. He's not going to, I don't think, a starter anymore, but a guy off the bench is not bad.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see where he goes.
And how much money he gets. The way he left in terms of his exit interview, it seemed like he played his last basketball in Brooklyn, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was back on a cheap contract if no one offers him money.
Gotcha.
But that wraps it up. Small forwards are wrapped up. Obviously, point guard's already out. Shooting guards is going to come. Power forward and centers and some more of the free agent shows. So check us out: iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube.
Peace out, knuckleheads.